Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
All right, John. Our pre-show discussion here on the Brown Sports Bag always kind of leads me to some thoughts, but we're not going to start with that, but I'm sure we will come back around to it because it'll be part of this larger discussion before the show's all said and done, I do believe. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball and softball because we're in the last week of the regular season for both sports. I know Barron's softball team is trying to pick up a couple of games, maybe a couple of games. We'll see how the weather holds out. I thought it was going to rain today and we were going to be in trouble today, but it looks like today is going to be fine. Tomorrow and Wednesday is going to be where things get a little iffy because the reason Barron County is trying to find another softball game is because their senior night got canceled last week, and so Coach Murphy had told us last week that this week, they already had a Monday game and a Thursday game, I think, scheduled. So they need a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday home game to get the senior night in. So he was having that discussion. I think it was with either Russellville, which was the one that got canceled last week, or maybe a game with Cumberland County. So we'll see how that works out. We don't know what the status of that is now, but they're trying to find the senior night, and which is very important to him this year, isn't it?
Yeah, they're probably there may be several schools in that.
Yes.
That or maybe need games, but they also may need their own games at home too. So it is tricky.
Yeah. So we'll see how that pans out. I know we're broadcasting at the Barron County baseball game tonight against Nelson County. The game starts at 6. Pregame will be 5:45. So the rest of the week's schedule might be a little tentative, like I said, either because of weather or because we may get a game added in there that we're trying to get on the air. So we'll put that stuff out on social media and that kind of thing, and we'll probably have a couple of pieces of info here on this station about the broadcast schedule this week as it works out. But let's start on the softball side. We went into last week with some discussion about how the district was going to shape up, who might be playing whom. It had worked out that Barron was going to be the 1 seed no matter what happened between Warren East and Allen County, because I learned.
And now we're on baseball now.
No, we're going to stay on softball.
We're on softball.
Yeah, we're going to stay on softball.
Okay, all right.
Because at the last week, what happened was Warren East, I still think, had 2 games left. One with Glasgow, one with Allen County.
And they won both of them.
They won both of them, but I had learned that the run difference was going to be the tiebreaker this year. It may have been, been last year, but it is. I joked last week whenever I did the broadcast with Jay Turner that every year it's like, okay, what's the tiebreaker this year? So
I'm happy that Barron won it.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you.
What is your favorite way to try to break a tie when it comes to like these kinds of things?
I mean, I don't really. To be honest with you, it just comes down to obviously head to head, and then the record against your second, third, or fourth place teams. But it's the same.
Yeah. Because
they just split. Then I guess just a coin flip, to be honest with you. I don't know, just the differential. I just think there's a lot of circumstances that goes, when you're talking about differential, to be honest with you.
Well, and I mean, it is kind of curious because
it worked out for Barron, so that's good. But I'm not a big fan of that being the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, that's the hit.
And I don't trust RPI.
No.
So you could go RPI, but strength. But I don't trust that either.
Yeah, those are the things that they might be great, but the kinks in it at the moment do not allow it to really, I think, serve as a good tiebreaker. The RPI and that kind of stuff, because we just got too many variables that are either factored in or not factored in. I think that cause problems.
I mean, we don't do it in basketball.
No.
I mean, basketball is not point differential.
True.
Or things like that, and that's. Like I said, I'm happy with whatever system we came up with. It worked in our favor this time.
Yeah.
From the Barron perspective, but I'm not a big fan of that. No.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to use that run differential, you might as well just use the flip the coin, because
yes.
that, like you said, the factors of the 2 games in that run differential are going to be key, and so it's almost like you had flipped a coin because of how it works out. Plus, I mean, life could be real strange too, because if you've got two teams that are highly competitive with each other, both games could be one run.
Yeah, then it probably would go to tie
Yeah.
to a coin flip. But a 5-4 loss and a 6-3 win. I don't know if that's enough to determine, and that's not what happened this time. Barron won the first game
by 9 runs.
Then lost the second one by 1.
Yeah.
But that's to me, it's a fairly arbitrary way about doing it. But all the schools agreed to it, so
yeah, Well, and that's the other thing.
That's what they agreed to.
I guess another thing that's kind of interesting in the state of Kentucky to me is that you have all these districts, and each district gets to handle how it's going to break its ties and whether or not it's going to just be a blind draw for its tournaments. Even that I think is still out there. I don't even think that's been decided.
There are a few
left that still do that. Probably not that many, but used to. That was almost everybody. It was just a blind draw, and then you were like, why did we bother playing the regular season? The games during the regular season didn't count for anything when you get a blind draw, to figure out who's going to play each other in the district tournament. So I've always thought that was crazy that the KHSA has all these playoff rules and whatnot, and it manages the postseason and provides a postseason, but then around the state allows the districts to say, hey, we're just going to draw to see who plays each other.
Yep.
So anyway, it's just that part's always been kind of odd to me as well. But anyway, off that topic, so Barron County, they secured the 1 seed, as we just explained. They will play Glasgow next Monday. The games are at Allen County, Scottsville. And then, of course...
So it'll be Barron and Glasgow.
Barron and Glasgow, yep. Barron 1, Glasgow 4. Glasgow did not win a district game this year. They were competitive in a couple of them, and then in a couple of them, they just really got run over. I still have not quite solved the riddle of what they are as a team. So, I mean, it's... And maybe it has to do with the pitching, like we talked about last week. McCoy's not pitched all year due to an injury, so they've been using Memphis Prophet, who I think is a sophomore, and 7th grader Kerrigan Hagan has pitched. So, and they've had some lineup changes and position changes as the season's gone along, and they don't seem to have gotten into a consistent rhythm. They had a week there where I thought they were pretty close, but that didn't last. So anyway, that'll be the 1-4 matchup there, Barron and Glasgow. And then Warren East and Allen County is struggling at the moment still. And, I mean, just injuries have plagued them.
Yeah, they lost 9 straight. And to be honest with you, they have been competitive in a lot of those games.
Right.
And a lot of them, a few, but against good teams, they pretty much got blown out.
Yeah.
So, Barron and East will both be pretty big favorites come next Monday.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, it is that combination of things. I mean, for Allen, it's injuries, and for Glasgow, it's that inconsistency, and maybe it's injuries there too. But, they just, down the stretch here, that we have, oddly enough, I thought it would be a 3-team race in that district, and it's turned out to be a 2-team race.
2-team, yeah.
And Barron, outside of that, late loss to Warren East, I mean, they've actually been the better team by far in the district.
Probably won, I forgot to add it up, 12 out of 13. The only loss was the close one to East.
Yeah.
Barron's 22-7. I want to give a shout-out last week in their 2 wins. Just talking about the Allen County win, which was a blowout, 17-3. Norris Shirley, how about a day? 3 for 4, 5 RBIs, 3 homers. 3 homers in 1 game.
Yeah.
And then she followed that up against LaRue a couple of days later with another homer. Mm-hmm. So her and Katie Murphy both have 7 for the year.
Yeah.
And Katie Murphy, against Allen, pretty good day, too. She was 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and a homer. Mm-hmm. Brawley, she had a homer, and Shea Bogue against LaRue homered. So, the Barons got the sticks out for sure. I'm sorry, Shea Bogue did not homer. Shea Bogue was a pitcher. She went 7 innings, allowed 1 run against a pretty decent LaRue County game.
That was a good game.
It was a good game, a good pitching performance by Shea.
Yeah. Well, and back to the Norris Shirley thing in the 3 home run game. So the most home runs in a single game in a season has been 4. 2 players have done that before. Now there's a whole bunch of them than 3. But that puts her in the KHSA record book for home runs in a game. So, I mean, that was an impressive day. And I think she drove in one was a solo, one was a 2, and one was a 3, or maybe it was 2 2s and a solo. But anyway, they were all like just impressive hits. I mean, she crushed them.
Well, her and Murphy and I think Elmore,
Katie Elmore.
Yeah, both. Katie has 5 for the year. So, that's been an impressive. One of the more impressive parts about Barron is their hitting is, if your pitching is shaky in any way, I mean you're in trouble against Barron. You're going to have to score, and of course. Shea Bogue I think it's fair to say, has really improved as the year has gone on. She gives you a chance to win. Doesn't strike out a ton of people, but she keeps you in the game. And Myatt, who's kind of been a pretty good compliment to go with her, both of those girls, I think, have done a very good job.
Yeah. Another thing that has occurred is that Bogue doesn't strike out a bunch, but she keeps the ball to where, for the most part, to where her defense can make plays.
Yeah, and that's true for about every team in the region. You've got to make plays behind them. I don't know if there's a dominant pitcher. Probably the kid from South Warren and Greenwood probably had the 2 most, they can strike you out.
Yeah.
But, most teams, you're going to have to make some plays, and Barron is blessed with, they've got, it does help to have Katie Murphy at short. I mean, she gobbles up and makes a lot of plays there, and they're solid. I think Shirley's at third, right? Second baseman. And that's
Mia Long.
Yeah, I mean, they're very, very solid and so forth. So, Barron's 22-9. I think they would be they were a little shaky there for a while, but boy, they've got on a really, really good roll. They only have 2 games this week. You mentioned they're looking for games. I think they go to Clinton. That'd be a good challenge for them.
Yeah, I believe that one's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow at Clinton, and I forgot who they played at the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Glasgow's 5-16. They lost 2 last week. They lost to East 12-2, and a close one to Louisville Atherton, I think 6-4.
Yeah, that was up there at the. What do they call it? The Abe Lincoln Classic or whatever it is?
That would be at LaRue, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. They were originally scheduled to have 2 games on Saturday. I guess they trimmed that tournament back because some teams had dropped out of it.
Probably. Yeah.
Because there were several. Originally, I think Caverna was supposed to play in that, but they did not play in it. They trimmed it back. They ended up only playing 1 game there.
So Barron and Glasgow next Monday, and I don't know if we've made a decision which game we're going to cover. We have made a decision. Okay.
We will broadcast the softball first round game and the softball championship, because of the way it works out is if Barron wins their first round game, they'll play in the district championship in baseball. I think it's on Wednesday. So we'll have an opportunity to broadcast all the 2 championship games if they get there. But there was no conflict on Monday, so we went ahead and did the Barron Glasgow softball game. We're going to broadcast that on Monday.
Okay.
So it works out pretty well. If Barron wins, then we'll have those games.
And if you can go to the games, the fields are probably, if you got a good arm, it's a rock throw away from each other at Allen. The baseball field's the lower field, and right up the. You can actually sit in the middle and watch both.
Yes, you can. It's excellent. I like when they play at Allen because it makes it easier for me, especially if the games are going on at the same time. I can get to both of them, and kind of we can stay updated on what's going on and all that jazz. Meanwhile, on the baseball front, we mentioned Barron went undefeated in the district, so they're the 1 seed. They'll be playing Allen in that first round game, and then Glasgow and Warren East are playing each other. And to be honest with you, I would say, obviously Barron would be favored on in their game, and East I would say is favored in the other game. But I will say this: there have been some lopsided outcomes and some close games, and it all depends on who's on the mound. For all 4 of these teams at this point. Obviously that's the most obvious statement I can make. But considering how lopsided some of the games have been and how close some of the games have been, that might be a little surprising that it can be that dramatically different.
Well, it's normally the case. Even teams that are not very good oftentimes has a decent pitcher.
Yeah.
Which can kind of keeps, Allen has struggled this year, but at times they've been competitive when they've had the right person on the mound.
Yeah, Eli Stamper.
That's correct. And the second time Barron played Allen, I think it's 5-4, 4-3 is close.
Yeah.
And when he pitches, that record for the year is a little deceiving.
Right.
I mean, he's good enough if you don't. He's good enough to at least prevent 8, 9, 10 runs. So you'll have to score. It makes it a little bit more interesting and so forth. So it's not a walkover to say the least. Barron's sitting good right now. They're 18-11 with their schedule. I think it's a heck of a year.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's if you played more of a traditional schedule, he may be 25 and whatever 4, but
Right.
but he goes out and he plays the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And they got a good win last week against Adair, I think 15-9. Tristan Meach, who's normally we talk about from pitching perspective,
Right.
he's really hitting the ball better, hitting the ball well. He was 3 for 4. He had 2 homers and 5 RBIs in that game. And Axel Dyson, he was 3 for 5 and a homer and 4 RBIs. So those kids had 9 RBIs.
Yeah.
In that win against Adair. And Adair's got a winning record. Mm-hmm. And then their loss was, if you can call them good losses, against Taylor County, I think 4th in the state.
Yeah, somewhere up there.
Top 5 in the state, 4-1.
Yeah.
In which Tristan Meach went 5 innings and only allowed 1 run and 2 hits.
Mm-hmm.
And, he really got hot at the end of the year as a left-hander got better and better and better and became arguably the number 1 pitcher from Barron. And it looks like to me he's kind of on that route again.
Alfonso has an interesting situation with his pitching because he has Joey Myers, who it looks like he goes deeper into the game than Meach, but Meach is probably the more dominant pitcher when he's on. And so, it's a good problem to have, because then you just have to worry about, because Meach I don't think he's made it past 5 innings. He may have gotten to 6.
He went to he pitched 6 and
against Glasgow.
6 and 2/3.
Yeah. So he has that, but that's as far as he's really gotten in a game. Usually he's around that 5 innings.
Depends on if he walks people.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's pitch count. He got up in the, I think, low 90s pitches, and if he walks several, the pitch count goes up and so forth.
Yeah, so it's a guy you're going to start. You hope he can get all the distance with Meach, but you're probably going to have a closer. And he's got a couple of good ones with Skylar Potter. I think, and Gavin Coffey's come in and closed some behind Meach as well. Or you have Myers, who might be able to go the distance in that first round game. So it's an interesting decision there in that game.
I think they have 2 games this week, Nelson, and they got Russell County.
Yes, that's right.
It'd be a really good test for them. And I think this week will be used from the pitching perspective just to try to get you're trying to get your pitchers ready for Monday. Mm-hmm. So whoever pitches against Russell County, which is I think was that tomorrow?
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday. Whoever pitches on Thursday probably won't pitch on Monday.
Yeah.
If you do, they'll just throw somebody in
there.
there.
I think Barron's baseball game is on Tuesday, so he's getting a little
extra. Oh, it's Tuesday.
Day.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
So
you may throw a few innings, okay. But anyway, you got to be you're trying to get everything prepared for next week.
Yeah. And then Glasgow, I think they also have an interesting situation because I don't know that they have a number 1.
Yeah.
They have Austin Parker, Mason Bass, Mason Lowry, maybe even Davey Williams or Zach Poor. They have about 5 guys. Parker's probably been the most consistent of the bunch, I think.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it's been their biggest issue.
Yeah.
They're 11-19. They lost 3 games last week, and to be honest with you, none of them were close, but they were against good teams.
Yeah.
They lost twice to Russell County, 15-6 and 10-5,
mm-hmm.
and then got shut out by Bowling Green, 10-0. And the theme was, you played those 3, but you gave up 10 runs or more in all 3 games.
Right.
And I think their team ERA is possibly over 6.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally with Glasgow, it's throughout all the years they've generally had good pitching, good defense, and
mm-hmm.
But when they had really good hitting, they were really dangerous.
Right.
And the pitching has been, I think it's fair to say, that's been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have to decide, who they want to go with to be Warren East. Now, probably everybody's got to be ready.
Yeah.
And, and so you got to win that first game against East. East is one of the top 5 teams in the region, but they were last year too.
Mm-hmm.
And East has like 3 pitchers.
Yeah.
3 good starting pitchers. They got to pick which one they want to go with or whatever. But, Glasgow is capable of beating East. They've played them close both times, I think.
Yeah.
So it's not a walkover for Warren East in any way.
Mm-hmm.
That game is
that one's on Monday, I believe.
So the 2 and the 3 are playing the first game of the tournament. That doesn't make sense to me.
I'm not. As I'm saying this to you, this is just off the top of my head. They actually don't have the district meeting until Wednesday night.
Okay. Well, I would think 1 and 4 because it gives the first team. If Barron wins, they would have the day off before they play the.
Well, I don't know if they've made this decision, and I could just be saying this wrong because the game's at Allen, and so they don't want to conflict the home team with the softball. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the first whoever's the 1 seed gets the first game.
Maybe the Barron game is on Monday, but I was thinking because of the way that we did the broadcast schedule, I was thinking we were doing the softball because I guess maybe the Barron's baseball game is Monday.
Yeah,
maybe that is right.
Yeah, I think so. It just at the same time you got to pick one. You can't do both games at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking it was the softball championship conflicting with Barron's game, and so we were just going to do the championship no matter what.
Yeah,
because it was the championship, but that may not be correct. Don't trust me. We'll put it online at some point in time and let you folks know. But anyway, the actual district meeting is for the district tournament meeting is Wednesday, I believe. So I don't know. You know, I'm sure they know what they want to do, but we haven't actually seen it set in stone yet. Anyway, so it'll be an interesting kind of situation. I think. Going back to what you were saying about Warren East having 3 good pitchers. Last year they squandered the situation. They got a little ahead of themselves, and put themselves in a bad situation and ended up losing that game to Barron in the championship and then going to Russell County to play in the first round of the tournament. Now, I believe this year everything is back at WKU, so there will be no more at somebody's place for that first round game.
That's a big improvement if that's true.
And I'm going to guess it works out to where it's all going to start on Memorial Day like it did traditionally.
Like that, too.
Yeah. So I have not verified this, obviously, to see what the schedules are. But hopefully we do have that situation where we have that all-day Memorial Day like we used to, 4 baseball games, 4 softball games over at WKU. It's a long day, but it's a pretty awesome environment.
Yes, I agree.
Anything else on the high school baseball, softball front that struck you from last week?
No, I mean, it's just been a slowdown, basically, because of the weather the last 2 weeks. Generally, you want to build momentum. And baseball and softball is about, momentum. And that momentum is you got to get into a routine. And it's been thrown off a little bit, especially for the hitters.
Well, and it is curious because, we had a large chunk of the season where, we were just piling in games because we weren't having any weather issues. So right here at the end, we're having the issues, which is a little different.
But it's the same pretty much for everybody.
Yeah.
So, unless you have turf, which Greenwood has turf.
Yeah, Bowling Green does have turf.
Bowling Green has turf. In the 5th, Greene County now has turf in softball and baseball. If you don't have turf, it makes it very, very difficult. I think Barron's going to get turf eventually.
They're raising funds
They're raising funds for turf, at least on the baseball field.
Right.
And, if you have turf, and I'm not a big turf fan, but what I will say about turf, though, is that unless it's lightning, you're not going to get rained out.
Right. Yeah, and we had an instance over the last couple of weeks where the games were supposed to be played at Barron or supposed to be played at Glasgow, and they got moved. I think Barron went up to Taylor County to play.
They had turf.
And then Glasgow went over to Bowling Green and played, and I think played over at Greenwood, and Barron may have played over at Greenwood too whenever the weather wasn't – it wasn't raining then, but it had rained, and everybody who had dirt was pretty much out of luck. All right. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, you helped enlighten me about something earlier that I was confused about because I've never seen it done before. So they're having 2 tennis tournaments in the 4th region this year. But I understand they're only having 1 state tennis tournament. So the first tennis tournament in the 4th region and in all 16 regions, that was the part I didn't know until you enlightened me before the show started, is the team tennis tournament, and it started Friday. We had Barron County hosted Logan County in boys and girls, and then the winners advanced to play Metcalfe County. So the Logan County boys beat the Barron County boys, and the Barron County girls beat the Logan County girls, and then Metcalfe played Logan boys, Barron girls. All this was on Friday. That had to be the longest day in Coach Rickard's tenure as a coach. I'm sure if you go to the regular old tournament, that's a long day too. But in terms of hosting something like this, because all the matches were played over at Barron, that had to be a long day for her. And so then Glasgow played Russellville's boys because Russellville does not have a girls team.
Nor do they have a baseball team.
Nor do they have a baseball team. Yeah, if anybody's looking around and see, some of the wins that some of the teams around the state have had, mostly in this area against Russellville, all being 1-0, it's because Russellville decided they didn't have enough players for a team right at the start of the season. I think they actually announced it after the season had officially started. So anyway, on that end. So anyway, so Glasgow's boys played Russellville's boys, and Glasgow's girls played Warren East's girls, because Warren East doesn't have a boys team, I guess, or they didn't. Here's the other thing. Some people decided just not to participate in this thing, which I also found out. And I thought, okay, well, that's great. So because Bowling Green's not participating in it, I don't believe. And so they seeded the top 2 seeds in this team tournament, 1 being Greenwood, 2 being South Warren. The rest of it was a blind draw. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they seeded it because they wanted to make sure Greenwood and South Warren meet each other for the team tournament title at the end of this for boys and girls, I guess. And everybody else is, hey, if you want to play in it, you can come play in our tournament is what it looks like. But, yeah, they're doing it around the state, but they don't have a state team tennis tournament. It's just the way it used to be.
So if you win the girls or boys region in tennis, then you're just the 4th region winner.
Yeah, you can go hang a banner saying 4th region winner.
But there's no advancement.
Yeah, as far as we can tell. You had shown me where to look this up on the KHSA website. Some of the regions don't even actually have their brackets posted on there. There's this thing called UTR Sports that specializes in tennis and pickleball tournaments, and they use that system sort of like they use a lot of the Kentucky mile split for track.
And the individual tennis region starts
Friday. Yeah, the boys will be at Buchanan Park over there in South Warren County, and the girls will be playing at South Warren High School.
Okay.
And I guess you can enter 3 singles and 2 doubles in that. Mm-hmm. Usually how that works.
And that's how the team is too.
Yes, that's right. And so, I'm guessing there'll be people who are playing in the individual region that did not play in this team tournament region.
And the winners of the individual girls, boys, singles, and doubles, those move on to the state later on in Lexington.
Yes. And so I guess they're going to do at the state level to win a team title. I guess they're going to use the same system they've always used, which is you accumulate points as your individual players advance. And then at the end, if your team got the most points, which has been St. X and
boys,
boys, and who is it? Is it like
girls?
Assumption or somebody like that?
McCracken's always good.
McCracken's, yeah.
Lexington Christian, some of those Kentucky Country Day. There's various ones.
Kentucky Country Day is the one that is like really good at girls tennis, I guess. So anyway, that's all not changed as far as I can tell. But it's just I thought it was just an odd situation that they started this without any progression beyond this point. You won the region.
Yep. It's a little different.
It is. And this kind of brings me to our what I mentioned before we got on the show that we had talked about, that it's like in almost every sport at this point, the schools in the 14th district, in the non-classified sports, so, like basketball, baseball, softball.
That's everything but football.
Everything but and track/cross country, I guess. I think those are the only ones, football, track, and cross country. So the 14th district schools have just, in the last 10, 15 years, and pretty much every sport, and maybe back 20 years, have just dominated this region. I mean, you look at the tennis, you look at soccer, you look at volleyball, baseball, with the exception of Russell County, probably. Maybe Logan's gotten in there a little bit, but I don't know that Logan's won a region. Franklin Simpson, I think, has won a region in the last 15 years. Russell County's won 1 or 2. But for the most part, it's been Bowling Green, South Warren, I guess Greenwood. Maybe they've not won a region, but they've been pretty competitive. So, boys basketball, obviously it's just 2 schools, Bowling Green and Warren Central. Girls basketball, it's not been quite like that, but Bowling Green has kind of become the force to be reckoned with. And every time you think that they're not going to win the girls' region, they mess around and win it, like this year.
There's no question you got to go through that district.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
You have to go through the Bowling Green district, and if it was open for football, you'd have to go through Bowling Green and South Warren.
Yes, exactly.
So I mean, it's the biggest population center in the region. So I mean, It's home of Western Kentucky University, and so it's a big population center. So they're going to get a lot of good athletes and players and so forth. But yeah, it does seem like they have. I think everybody realizes in high school that's you got to beat the Bowling Green schools. That's if you want to win your region in whatever level you're participating in, whether it's volleyball or basketball or whatever. The region runs through that district. I mean, that's why Warren East was so excited to get out of there. It doesn't help them win a region, but it helps them get to the region.
Yeah, which they had not done anything in a while.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's the way it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, do you think? I mean, obviously it's a population center, so you wind up with more available athletes, people who participate in these sports there. But do you think the finances are also driving this situation to some degree? I mean, just the available funds for some of the schools?
I don't think it's finances through the schools. Mm-hmm. What I do think is it's resources for people in that area.
Right.
Lessons.
Yes. Indoor
cages. Mm-hmm. Club volleyball, club soccer, and all the facilities that whether it's through the Warren County Rec and all the fields and all the availability that they have. I think that's where it lies more than anything else.
I guess that stuff also helps people work on their skills year round.
Correct.
Instead of just when the weather's good, when the season's in, that kind of thing, and that maybe that disparity is happening
and
there.
And people move. If you need one person or two people to help your team. I mean, there's so many jobs too. People move in to Bowling Green. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, they're not moving to some of these places. They're moving
out of them.
Moving out of them. So they do have that. Now, listen, they also have to split it among 4 schools too. It's not like they have everybody, but they are on. And the other thing is soccer. Just for example, soccer was a sport generally only played by people in that area forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I think it also attracted better coaches, more familiar with teaching fundamentals and skills and so forth. It's taken a while for it to spread, out and toward, Barron connects with Warren County, so. We've got kind of a spillover for that. But when you go past Barron into, say, the Russell County, Metcalfe, Monroe, and that area, it's a little bit, more of a foreign sport that they haven't even, they don't have the quite access to the people that maybe the Bowling Green and people closer by.
I think one of the things that I do find fascinating about this, though, with the 4th region compared to, say, like the 5th region, we talked about this during basketball season, is across that region, it still seems to be more competitive in different locations, even though E-Town really is the
center. E-Town, you're right. E-Town and North and Central Hardin does not dominate the 5th like the Bowling Green schools dominate the 4th.
Right.
And there are equal as many quote-unquote small schools in the 5th. Mm-hmm. Campbellsville, Caverna, Bardstown, Bethlehem. Of course, it's a private school. Green,
Bardstown itself.
So they don't quite dominate in these what I call minor sports. You have multiple champions in baseball, softball. Central Hardin has been really good, but so has Green's won multiple ones. Girls basketball, you had state champions out of Marion. Marion County, for example, have been state champions. Bardstown, Bethlehem has won like the last 3. So you just don't quite have that same. Adair County just won it in boys basketball.
Right.
So it's not quite the same as you're right. The 5th with E-Town has not dominated per se. Nothing like the Bowling Green schools in this district down here.
Well, and there's been waves of time that Owensboro has been, Owensboro schools have been the strongest in the 3rd region, but even it has, you have your schools out there in the 3rd region that have been competitive, won regions that are not from Owensboro. So I do find it, and maybe it's just the particular growth that Bowling Green has been under over the last 20 years, industrial and, people moving in. I think it's like Warren County was the fastest growing county maybe this last census go round, and Bowling Green was like the 2nd fastest growing city or 3rd, somewhere in that window. But I mean, it was maybe that explosive growth answers that question.
Even with tennis, I mean, You can play tennis year-round in Bowling Green.
True, yeah, because you got that indoor Buchanan facility, and I think
correct.
there's another one too.
Yeah, and they have training centers, that where, indoor training centers. Now, more and more schools now have your indoor hitting facilities, but for years Bowling Green's had that, and lessons and things like that. So there is that subtle advantage of not necessarily how big your school is. It's to what you are. What you have access to. I think access may be the more important thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've just as we were discussing it during basketball season, especially as we were discussing it in conjunction with discussing how the fifth region was, I kind of looked at some other regions to see, you have this population center. Are they as dominant as what we see out of the 14th district, those Bowling Green schools? And it's a little more spread around in most of them. Now, when you get up into northern Kentucky, you can't really answer that question because that whole thing is a huge population center.
But even in the 11th, the Lexington schools don't dominate the 11th. People may not know that. Yeah, you have Madison Central, you have Scott County, you have Franklin County. I mean,
Mercer County, I think, is in there too.
That's the 12th.
12th, yeah. But so I mean, you're right. I mean, you would think that as big as Lexington is, you would think that same thing would translate, and it really has not. So anyway. Let's talk about track a little bit.
All right.
Then get off that topic. So the track regionals are starting next week. Barron runs, I think, next Monday at Meade County, I think is where it is. And then their Class 3A Region 2. Coming in, I looked up some of the folks who were, from Barron in that meet who are like at present I think the registrations still have 3 or 4 days before they're closed. So some of the schools may not have all of their athletes registered yet. But anyway, Brody Miller is ranked first in the 1600 and second in the 3200. Grayson Billingsley is second in the discus. And then on the girls' side, you have Chesley McPherson first and Gracie Reed second in the girls' 1600-meter run. And they are also first and second in the 3200. And then Riley Wilson is ranked first in the girls' discus and first in the girls' shot put.
That's great.
Yeah.
Coached her mother, Chastity Nunn, in basketball,
right.
So that's cool.
Yeah. I thought about that. I knew she was having a good year, and then when I went over to the Terry Reid Classic, I got some photos of her. I still got to get those online and the results from the meet. But yeah, so
it's hard to believe that the region is Monday. To be honest, we hadn't talked about it because we just hadn't had a lot of.
Yeah, it's
it just kind of hadn't had a lot of meets, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
to report. To be honest with you,
it's been kind of sporadic because we had 2 or 3 that we were supposed to have locally that got rained out or rescheduled, or we didn't have people running in those particular meets, or they were running somewhere else, or they just were nursing injuries and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, really, when you look at it, now Brody has run pretty effectively the whole year, but Chesney and Gracie, they're really only been mostly active the last 3 weeks.
Well, they should be fresh.
They should be.
Yeah.
And look, their recent runs have been very good. So,
right.
They're right there. And so that gives Barron about 4 or 5 athletes who have a chance, maybe 6 athletes who have a chance to win at that regional. I'm not sure. I think it's basically the same region they've been in with the likes of North Hardin and that kind of stuff, which is a dominant program when it comes to like the short distance races and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Meade County, I think, usually has some pretty good distance runners. Maybe that's not the case at the moment. I'm not 100% certain. There was one runner, I think, from South Warren on the girls' side who's a pretty good distance runner as well. But Brody Miller I think he was about 20 seconds faster than second.
That's great.
In that region.
That's great.
So yeah, and then go ahead.
No, I mean that's a strong region when you throw in North Hardin with Greenwood and South Warren and some of those. That's a strong region.
Yeah, and then on the Glasgow, they bumped back down to 1A for this year, and then they have 3 or 4 athletes, I think, who are right there. Now, the bad side for them as a team is they're back in the same district with Greene County, and that's where the meet's going to be. And Greene County is just a dominant 1A program. I mean, they are outstanding. They have people in every event, and they're usually good in every event.
Yes, they are. It's a long history. I'm from there, but there's a long history with Greene County track and with cross country. Coach Deaton, who was my basketball coach, he was also the track and cross country coach. He's still involved. He's in his 80s, but he's not the head coach, but he still works these things. And I've got a cousin who's on the girls' side. It's a high jumper and long jumper and all that stuff. So they're pretty good at it.
Yeah. But Glasgow, they have Lucas Christian, who will go into that region ranked first in the 110 hurdles, the 300 hurdles, and the triple jump.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a senior. He's having an outstanding year. He's at different times. I think he broke the school record for Glasgow in the triple jump and the 300 hurdles. He may not have broken the 110 yet. And then I think Glasgow has several boys and girls relay teams that went in with the top ranked time. Greene County, when I looked, had not put them in their numbers in yet, so that may change a little bit. And then you have Cynthia Austin, who's pretty competitive in the triple jump and the 100-meter dash. Taylor Wilson's pretty competitive in the 100 and 200. And then I think it's Aaliyah Haskins in the shot and discus, and Peyton. I can't remember Peyton's last name all of a sudden. She's pretty good. I think it is in the discus as well. So, I mean, they've got several that are going to be right there. Now, I go back to this Greene County thing. They have a girl named Scout Brockman who's in the 8th grade. And
yes, she's a thrower. She's a basketball player too, rebounder. Starts on the basketball team.
Yeah, I think her discus is 111 is what her. And I mean, she's just way
grade.
out there.
Yes.
So nobody's catching her in this region, but Glasgow has a couple who can finish that second, third spot. Probably.
No, they have a defending state champion in boys thrower too.
Yes, yeah. Greene County's just an impressive program.
Yeah.
You mentioned Coach Deaton. They had the Carl Deaton Classic the week before. They have the Terry Reed Classic over at Barron County. Same kind of thing. These people who built these programs and have handed them off, and they're still strong programs.
That's right.
Anything else on the track that you can think of?
Just wishing the best of luck.
Yep. I forgot to mention this. Glasgow will run at Greene County on May 22nd, so a week from tomorrow is when their meet will be.
Okay.
All right, it's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, we're back here on the Brown Sports Bag. We'll be riding with you until the top of the hour coming up, I guess. I never can. The bottom of the hour is at the 30. So, yeah, anyway, all this time I've been around the radio station. I still haven't learned anything about it, I don't guess. Anyway, so speaking of learning, have we learned anything from the NBA playoffs, John? Other than, for the most part, that Indiana Knicks series has been pretty good, except for this last game that Indiana won. They've been some really gritty games, and they've been pretty fun to watch. But maybe the legend of the Knicks coach has reared its ugly head again. His players seem to be breaking down on him.
Well, they've got injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lost, of course, Randall before the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And then they lost,
which didn't seem to hurt them.
And then they lost that really good shooter right at, like, the second game of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but he was a dead-eye shooter. He's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost the game 2 games ago. The really good guy they traded for Toronto pulled a hamstring.
Yeah, Pascal Siakam.
No,
sorry,
it's the other
Wrong
guy. Piasco plays for Indiana.
That's right.
And they lost the other guy that I can't pronounce his name. So they have suffered a massive amount of injuries. Yeah, and then the blame is that the coach, Thibodeau, plays his players too much.
Yeah.
I don't know of any player that doesn't want to play. Yeah, it's only an issue now that, that he plays his players too much. I don't really necessarily buy that, to be honest with you. But
well, they always like to pin Derrick Rose's knee injury on him, but I mean, a knee injury is a knee injury.
That's right. Derrick Rose has been fragile, forever. But so it's 2-2, and the last game was almost a give-up game after they got way behind. It was like, okay, we are shorthanded. That's just kind of, we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
So I think they play tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They go back to the next to New York 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that. No way would I say they're out. No way.
I just thought that was
but the injuries have crushed them.
Yeah. I thought it was fascinating narrative when I heard someone make that comment about
you got to blame somebody.
I guess you do.
Yeah, blame a coach for playing his players too much. That's a good one right there now.
Well, I mean, and what is the deal with the NBA? I mean, you can't play everybody because
what's so fascinating about that is the narrative for the last couple of years has been all this load management.
Yes.
They don't play it, and players take off and blah blah blah. Now we finally got a team that likes to play, and the coach plays his players, and now all of a sudden he gets criticized. I just think it's a
They're just
bunch
looking.
of crap.
There are people out there who are still angry, especially if they're Bulls fans, who are still angry at Thibodeau because they really thought they should have been able to win a championship when they had Derrick Rose and that crew together, and they were good at what they did because they played the way Thibodeau wanted them to. Hard. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, was Derrick Rose fragile? I mean, I don't think Thibodeau, necessarily played him too much. I mean, Derrick Rose was a dude who was not going to come out of a game. I mean, that's how he was as a player. And now they have Jalen Brunson, who's very much that same kind of mentality as their, leading scorer. So I don't know. I mean, you got to play hard to win. And in a series as tight as this one has been, you need your best players on the floor as much as you could possibly have.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the playoffs, basically rotation is 7, maybe 8. And just Thibodeau, he tends to play something. I mean, Josh Hart doesn't come out. He's played him 48.
Yeah.
But does he play his starters maybe more than others? Maybe so, but I don't think that's why they're breaking down.
Yeah. Wilt Chamberlain would scoff at them.
Yeah.
I mean, he played more than 48 minutes a game for one whole season.
Right.
So
I don't put a lot of stock in it. It's just the blame game that we like to do.
Mm-hmm. And then, have we learned anything from the Nuggets and the Timberwolves series?
Interesting series. Both teams have swept on the other team's home court.
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets, looked terrible, especially their second game, down 2-0, and then of course everybody wrote them off, and now it's 2-2.
Yeah.
And back dead even, like just completely reversed.
Somehow then these two games in Minnesota, they managed to turn Rudy Gobert into the Rudy Gobert at Utah, where they are able to basically abuse him and the fact that he's not a scorer. I mean, he can't hit free throws, and so maybe they've done that. Maybe the Nuggets have done that to the Timberwolves and Rudy Gobert, or maybe, I don't know.
They're not getting a lot of production outside of
Anthony Edwards,
Anthony, he's the only one. He had 44 in the last game, but they're not getting a lot of production outside of him, whereas Denver has great balance right now. I mean, all 5 starters. Of course, Joker is the Joker. I mean, he's playing fantastic. But Jamal Murray's playing better, and
that seems to be the key. He's played a lot better in 2 games in Minnesota than he did at Denver.
He had that breakdown, where he threw the towel and threw the heating pad, and you just, looked, that was a bad look, but he's come back and played well.
Mm-hmm. I guess having those 4 days off really kind of allowed him to recuperate. I mean, that's probably the longest stretch he's had off in the playoffs since it started.
I mean, I was surprised they had that because you don't – everybody else is on a play, sit one out, play again. I'm a little surprised they had that gap, but it clearly helped Denver.
Yeah. And, the Celtics are the best team in the East, but they always find a way to lose a game where you just scratch your head and say, how do they lose these games?
Yeah, but, they've only had – basically they either blow you out or they get blown out. I think they've played now – what have they played in the playoffs? They played now 8 games, and they've been dominant 6 out of 8.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it may be a little focus, a little concentration, but it does seem to be awful easy, which I think will be a problem when they start to get a little bit better competition against them.
Yeah, I do believe no matter who wins that Knicks-Pacers series, it'll be a different animal for them.
It will be, and especially if they survive and get to the finals, it'll be a much different animal.
Oh, yeah. And then on that end, we have the Mavericks and the Thunder, and I thought the Mavericks just were done, and they've looked pretty good the last couple of games.
Yes, they've looked really good, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're up, what are they up, 2-1 now?
Yeah. Game tonight, I think, game 4 tonight.
Yeah, and it's been the secondary players because Luka is, he's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But the other secondary players are playing well. I give Luka credit. I've watched a couple of times. He's actually trying defensively. He's much better.
Yes.
He's much, much better.
It is a fascinating thing. You put he and Kyrie Irving on the team together, 2 guys notoriously bad at defense.
I never thought that'd
work.
Me
neither.
And that has worked.
Yeah, and suddenly they're both still good offensively, but they also both suddenly decide they know how to play defense. They've had a positive influence on each other.
Yep.
And you're right. I wrote that off. I figured they wouldn't even make the playoffs with those 2 on the team together. Meanwhile, we had college softball going on, and WKU. Did they get robbed, John?
No, they didn't get robbed, but I didn't like the format.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew it going into it. It could affect them or whatever. But anyway, they lost in the finals to Liberty. And the tournament was double elimination except for the finals. Mm-hmm. And WKU had not lost a game. They won their first two. They were in the finals. Liberty actually lost their first one. Mm-hmm. And Liberty was the number one seed, too, by the way. And then Liberty won 3 straight and got to the finals. And it was – I think they did it because it was a national TV game, so that was their time spot. And they wanted that to be the finals, not the – finals plus one. Mm-hmm. And Liberty beat WKU in extra innings. Mm-hmm. And so both teams ended up with one loss, but for Western Kentucky, that was it. But you can't, is it a little unfair? Probably. I didn't really like it. It's a little bit unfair. It didn't award the team that had not lost. Right. Most of the time you have to beat the team in the finals twice, but that's not what happened. But Western Kentucky also had bases loaded in the 8th with nobody out and didn't score.
Yeah.
They popped up, and then the second time it was a hard shot to left center, and they caught it, and the runner at second got doubled off, and she got doubled off the bag before the runner from third scored on the sacrifice.
Oh.
So, they made some key mistakes as well. Yeah. But still, unfortunate.
Yeah. So who's winning the Women's World Series this year?
Well, that's a good question. Oklahoma's won the last 3. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're as dominant as they were in the past. They've actually lost 6 times this year, which is a lot for them. But they did not get the number 1 seed. Texas got the number 1 seed. Yeah. Though Oklahoma beat Texas in the finals of that conference. Mm-hmm. So the top 2 seeds are Texas and Oklahoma, who will both be in the SEC next year. Yeah. Probably one of those two. I mean, there's some good teams. Florida's gotten real hot. They're 4th in the country. I don't know if they got enough to win it, but all 13 SEC schools got in.
The SEC might be pretty good at softball.
Yeah, they and I think they got of the 16 seeds, I think they got maybe 7 out of the 16. Yeah, not including Oklahoma and Texas.
Not SEC yet.
Right. So they got all their of the 64 teams. They got all their schools in. Mm-hmm. Which Kentucky may be a little questionable, but they got in. Congratulations. So
are there any sneaky teams this year? That might make a run, that kind of thing. Like we had James Madison a few years ago, that kind of stuff.
I don't know. Miami of Ohio out of the MAC led the country in home runs, and they got sent to the Tennessee bracket. They may be somebody to watch out for. Yeah. Tennessee's, I think, the 3rd or 4th seed. Florida's up there too. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. The hitting has really, really caught up to the pitching. Yeah. And so you've got to be able to score. There's a lot of home runs hit and so forth like that. I like Missouri, by the way. There's your one. All right. I watched Missouri play. They got all the way through the finals and lost to Florida. I kind of like their team a little bit.
Gotcha. We talked about this during the basketball season as well, how they basically match the women's tournament and the men's tournament against each other. And you have to make it, if you have a Caitlin Clark or you have a South Carolina, that's going to elevate the standing of the women's program, the women's game in basketball. Then people are going to tune in and watch them. But you're kind of cheating it at the same time, matching it against the biggest 4 days of of sports, probably in terms of like that men's NCAA tournament those first 4 days. But they don't do this in softball and baseball. They allow us the chance to see the softball teams and the baseball teams.
Yeah, the baseball has another 2 weeks to go. Yeah. This is the last regular season of the baseball, and then the baseball's conference tournament's next week. Mm-hmm. Whereas the women have just wrapped up their conference tournament, and they'll have this next 2 weekends basically all to themselves, which is tremendous. The regions are this week, and the super region is the week after. Yeah. So they do have this staggered, which I think it's better for both sports. Yeah, and I've enjoyed.
We talked about this on this show the last few years.
It's a great sport to watch.
Yeah, it's great, and I enjoy the college baseball, especially now they have the pitch clocks and that kind of stuff.
That has helped.
Yeah, and they don't. So they also don't seem to have as many substitutions as they did in the pitching circle. You got a lot more guys seem to be going deeper. You would watch a college baseball game a few years ago, and 7 dudes might pitch before it's all said and done. One guy would come out there and throw 3 pitches and leave. So
it still happens.
It does. Yeah. But it does seem that they've cut back on that.
The clock has helped. Yes.
Yeah, and accelerated the game and made it a lot more fun. I'm looking forward to it. I will admit, I kind of tuned into college baseball a little bit as the season's going along. Mostly I watch Southern Miss play some. But once we get to these tournaments, I really enjoy watching them.
Kentucky's number 2 or 3 in the nation.
Yeah, they're really good this year, and so they should be a lot of fun this year. And I'm also, WKU's having a good season.
They are. They got swept this week, but they're I think they're 3rd in their conference right now.
Yeah. So they had a shot at getting that being number 1, but they kind of fumbled against Louisiana Tech over the weekend.
Yep.
So and their series coming up, their final series of the season will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we're here at the end for many sports at this point.
That's right.
All right, it's a Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.